Okay. Welcome to One More Row, the channel where we expand our knitting skills one row at a time. My name is Dana, and today we are going to talk about double knitting. So, if you're interested in learning more about that, please stay tuned. In the last video, I showed you how to cast on for double knitting, which we did way down here. Now, I had to rip it out and redo it because my yarn got all tangled up, and it was going to be a real pain in the butt to try to knit with it the way it was. So what I did was I ripped out what I'd done, rewound the balls with my ball winder, and it's working out a lot better now. And sometimes you have to do that, even though a lot of yarn comes pre-wound. Sometimes if you can manage, if you have a ball winder, I would suggest that you rewind the balls, because that will help you find out if there's like a lot of tangles, or some cheaper yarns also have knots in them. So what I would suggest with that basically that's the process of when they're spinning the yarn. It's to reduce wastage, because what happens is yarns break, or they run out of one set of roving or whatever it is that they're spinning, and they have to tie it to keep going, to keep the machines going. It's great if, you know, for the manufacturer, because then they reduce the amount of wastage, but it's not so great for us knitters, because you're knitting along and then you've got this big knot and you don't know what to do with it. So what I would suggest, even if your balls of yarn are pre-wound, rewind them if you can get your hands on a ball winder, or just use a simple method where you do it by hand and just make a round ball, because then you can find any tangles, get rid of those before you start knitting, and you can also deal with any knots. And what I would do if I found knots, I would untie them and then just separate the yarn into separate balls so that I can deal with the breaks in the manner that I want to. So now, as you can see, I've done a little bit of progress in this pattern. The first 3 inches was just a stripe pattern. It looks almost like it's ribbed on the camera, but it's a stripe. And as you can see, double knitting is basically 2 layers of knitting. It's hollow in the middle, and it makes a reversible fabric, which looks really cool when you're all done. It does make for a challenging project to knit, though, because most of the time you have a chart, and the colors on the chart are the same regardless of whether it's an odd numbered chart or an even numbered chart. But what happens is when you knit on the even numbered charts, even numbered rows rather, the colors are reversed. So if on your chart the first stitch you have to do is like a white square, which would represent your lighter color, on the reverse side it's going to be the darker color. So that's something that you have to kind of keep track of when you're doing this sort of thing. But once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. The first, I will admit, when I first started doing this one, I got to here, I did the stripes, no problem. But then once I got to the color work part, where it's like a pattern and it's not just simply following along from the previous row, I messed up a few times and had to rip it out. So just persevere. So I'm going to show you how to do the double knitting now. So let's get going on that. Okay, so in order to have neat and tidy edges, what you want to do is you want to pay special attention to your first 2 stitches and your last 2, because you want a nice neat edge. So what you're going to do is, with your first color, and I'm going to look at my chart here, and yes, it is supposed to be the gray. You're going to knit into the back of that stitch. Okay, and then because it's double knitting, you're going to bring both strands to the front so that you can purl the next stitch. And what you do is you cross your first color over your second one, so that the yarn's going to twist. And then you purl that stitch. And what that does is that makes a really nice tidy edge when you combine it with the treatment that I'm going to show you when we get to the end. Now, depending on how you knit, this could be a very slow process. If you are not comfortable knitting with both hands, you can certainly do it. I mean, it's not difficult. But, okay. Just keep track of where I am here. So now, what I do though, I knit with both hands, and it's a worthwhile skill to learn because it speeds things up immensely when you're doing any kind of stranded color work or double knitting. So I'll carry one color in my left hand, one color in my right, and then we're gonna knit. So according to my chart, I'm not gonna explain about my chart. I have it open here. I really want you to focus on just how to do the stitches. So again, you knit, always make sure when you're doing the purl portion that your yarns are always working together, because that's how you get the reversible fabric that's hollow on the inside. And I think I messed that up. Yes, I did. I messed up the chart. So I'm going to show you how to fix your mistakes. Very fortuitous. So we're just going to unknit a little bit. See, this is what happens. Did I mess that up? No, I didn't. I didn't mess it up. It was the stitch here that I messed up. So, moving along. So just unknit any mistakes that you make. As far as if you've realized you made a mistake far down in your project, you may have to just rip it out and, you know, feel bad. But one hint I will give about double knitting is you have to pay attention to what you're doing. This is not the type of knitting that you do when you want to watch that brand new TV show that you're super interested in, because you will miss most of it, because this requires so much focus and attention, particularly when you're doing the rows that are opposite, where the colors are opposite, because your brain has to do this flip thing where it's like, oh, it's got a light square, but I have to use the dark color. So my suggestion, if you have to have the TV on while you knit, put something you've already seen. So I'm going to continue on and do the rest of this row, because I want to show you how to do the treatment of the last 2 stitches, but I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. So I will be back in a second. Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to come back until I was at the end, but I was thinking about it and I thought, if you don't know how to knit with 2 hands, I thought I'd just do a quick and dirty little show you how, because it certainly does make any kind of stranded color work a lot easier. Okay, so what you do, depending on what color you need to use and what hand you're carrying it in, will depend on your style of knitting. If you knit continental, then you're going to have to get used to using your right hand. If you knit English, you're going to have to get used to using your left. But I'll show you as if you've never done it before, and I don't know, obviously, what hand you use. So the first stitch I want is going to be the same color as what's on my left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my needle from front to back, and I'm going to scoop it and lift it off. Then I've got to bring both strands to the front, and then I've got to purl. So your right needle goes in, same way you would to purl, but because I need the gray, I'm going to use my right hand to wrap it. Okay. And then we'll just do this again, like that. So now I need the gray to do my knit, so you just wrap it the same way you would when you're knitting. And then the purl, and this is the one thing I don't like about continental, is the purl stitch, because you got to sort of wiggle your finger down, but there we go. And then you just keep going along like this. Okay. And if you do hear little chirps in the background, that would be Norman. He's my parrot. He's been really good, but I'm doing this in the afternoon. Normally I film, see, there he goes. Normally I film late at night because that's when he's the most quiet. Daytime he's a little bit more vocal, but he's been pretty good. He's being pretty good today. He's got fresh papers because I just obviously just changed the papers in his cage. So sometimes that entertains him, but sometimes what he likes to do is build little forts in the bottom of his cage, and then he gets pecking on the bottom and chirping and talking. So you may hear some of that, but we'll see. Okay. And then get my pattern back up here. My iPad went to sleep. I always keep my patterns electronically, and I open them. I save them as PDFs and I open them in iBooks so that I can look at them on my iPad. And then that way, when my eyes get tired, I can make them nice and big. Okay, so once you get the rhythm going of this, it's not too bad, but like I said, it's definitely a focus project. This is not mindless knitting, but it is very worth it once you're all done and you see this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous creation. And you know, people go, oh my god, it's so beautiful, how did you do that? And you can pretend you're a genius. And I'm rambling. But anyway, we're almost at the end. You won't have to listen to me for too much longer. Okay, so now, just finish that. We are on the last 2 stitches, which are the easiest to do. I don't even need to tension my yarn, because what you do with your last 2, you're just going to slip them. You're not going to work them at all. So you slip the first one purlwise, bring both strands of yarn, then you slip the next one purlwise, and then when you turn your work, you're going to knit into the back of that stitch and then cross your 2 strands and then knit purl the next stitch. And that's how you keep very tidy, neat edges. So if you notice, my edges are very clean and very straight regardless of which side, right? So what's going to happen is you will get your darker color will go up one side and your lighter color will go up the other side, and it looks super, super nice when it's all done. And that, my friends, is how you do double knitting. Now this, you'll notice that my stitches are moving a bit here. That's because this pattern includes increases and decreases. I'm not going to get into that today. I'm going to do a bit more work because this has 6 repeats, so I've got plenty of time to come back and show you how to do increases, decreases in double knitting. There's this one it's a pretty good pattern to show because it has several different types of everything. So what I'll do is I'll work some more so you can get a good idea of what it's going to look like, and then next time when I touch on this topic, I'll show you how to do increases and decreases in your double knitting. But until then, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell so that you can be notified for when I put up a new video. Also, I'd like to know a little bit about you. So, have you ever done any double knitting? And if so, what was the first thing you made? Did you like doing it? And if you haven't done any double knitting, maybe suggest and say in the comments what's holding you back from it. Anyway, I hope to hear from you, and until next time, goodbye and happy knitting.